Many avoidants, especially dismissive, can appear to be very cool, confident, and collected. Like they have it all together, like they are very sure of themselves. But deep below the surface, there's actually a low self-esteem and a deep sense of shame. And this lack of self-worth, this low self-esteem, and this wound of shame actually drives a lot of their avoidant behaviors. Where does it stem from? It stems from childhood. And let me explain that and tie it all together, and it'll make sense as to why they actually show up the way they do in a relationship. Regardless of whether you're dealing with a fearful or a dismissive avoidant, you're dealing with the person that received consistent childhood emotional neglect, often growing up in households where you don't talk about feelings. If you're sad, you stuff it, you put on a happy face. The problem is, they personalize this neglect. They grew up to feel like it's something wrong with them, that they are inherently not lovable, that they are defective, that they're not worth loving. That's actually a core wound of shame that drives low self-esteem. Shame is different than guilt. People often confuse the two. Guilt is your mind telling you, I did something wrong. That means you have a conscience if you feel guilty about something. But guilt can be resolved. You can make amends if you hurt somebody, and you can stop repeating the behavior you feel guilty about. But whereas guilt is I did something wrong, shame is I am something wrong. There's no reasonable resolution to I am something wrong. But the feeling like there's something wrong with you, that you are inherently not lovable, that you're just inherently defective, it's hard to have a really good self-esteem when you actually believe that about yourself. So because of this belief that they are not good enough, that they are not lovable, that they're not worthy of actually having a partner love them, they put up these walls. These walls create emotional distance between themselves and their partner, because emotional distance is where they feel safe. Their subconscious fear is, if I let down my wall and I let this person in, they're going to figure me out. I will be exposed as not being lovable, as being defective, as being broken, as being worthless. So they keep their partner on the other side of the wall. And when things get too close, when there's too much intimacy building, it gives them a ton of anxiety because they risk being exposed in their own mind as being not lovable, as being not good enough, as being inherently defective. It's that core wound of shame that drives it. That core wound of shame really translates into a very low self-esteem. And sometimes they will actually reveal that low self-esteem through their words and actions, sometimes saying things like, I'm ultimately going to disappoint you. You deserve better. You deserve someone that can love you the way you deserve to be loved. That you are better than I deserve. I'm really not that great. You're going to find out that I'm really not that special. They'll reveal that low self-esteem, especially when they're triggered, when they're pulling away, deactivating and shutting down to protect themselves. Emotions and emotional closeness was never safe for them as a child, so they feel unsafe with it as an adult. But the reason they feel unsafe, again, is that core wound of shame and low self-esteem. And when they inherently don't like themselves, when they feel like they're not lovable and worth loving, it's really hard for them to show up for a partner and love their partner when they can't even respect and love themselves. All they can think of is soothing their own anxiety, soothing their own wounds, getting that external validation that they crave, because that's what helps them feel better about themselves in the moment. But it's only a temporary relief. They avoid painful emotions. They avoid stress and anxiety because that's all they ever learned to do, but they can't constantly avoid it. There is that feeling that's just lingering below the surface of all this shame and self-deprecation. And they can heal that, but it requires a lot of therapy, preferably with a licensed psychotherapist, one that understands attachment, and they can heal those wounds and learn new behaviors and learn to love themselves and build up that self-esteem. And once they do that, they can become a securely attached partner and learn new behaviors through repetition of different things when they're triggered. The human mind learns in repetition. The more you repeat anything, the more automatic it becomes. But very importantly, they have to go back, heal those wounds, and build up their self-esteem. They can absolutely do it. So, while they may seem very confident, especially in the workplace, in social circles, or even with their family, How they show up in the relationship is the true reveal. It shows you the lack of self-esteem below the surface. Because a person that really has a good sense of self, a person that really understands and recognizes and acknowledges their own self-worth, is not going to fear emotional intimacy, is not going to fear commitment, is not going to fear deep connection, is not going to run from love, is not going to go quiet, is not going to stonewall, is not going to cheat, is not going to ghost, is not going to pull away. Because people that are secure, confident, and actually recognize their own self-worth, they don't do those behaviors because they actually do feel like they deserve love just as much as the other person. And they show up in such a way that they actually allow themselves to create those connections and don't engage in those very insecure behaviors.